I was in Obi'S government for 8 years, beginning as a Commissioner for Information, understandably, because I was a professor of mass communication. After a short while, the governor felt I could do better in a different ministry. And that was how I moved into Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. It was a relatively new ministry. There was a Ministry of Economic Development, but then he created a new Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. And if you know Governor Obi very well, he's a very meticulous planner himself. He doesn't do anything haphazard. Whatever he does, he first of all plans it so effectively that when he begins to implement it, it looks like magic. So for him, me being in economic planning and budget, for me and many people, was like kind of mainstreaming of somebody's ability. And at the risk of not sounding modest, I think the ministry, we thrived there and we worked hard. In addition to being a commissioner, I also was made the coordinating commissioner for all partnership programs and donor agencies support. And for those who knew Anambra at that time, Anambra wasn't a rich state. The people from Anambra State, many of them are very wealthy personally, but as a state, it wasn't a rich state. So we needed every single kobo we could get from donor agencies. And before we came in, many of them had run away because Anambra was a very fractious place. There was so much fighting, so much bad blood, so much insecurity, so much everything bad that virtually all partners had gone. I remember as a consultant on behavior change communication for UNICEF. UNICEF stopped holding workshops and events in Anambra State. We had to go all the way to Owerri or Calabar to do such activities because Anambra was so insecure, so unsafe. People were not coming there. It was a very lively time. The 8 years were really, I would say, awesome. Again, not being modest. And we worked for those 8 years. And as soon as we finished, we went back to the university. I remember our executive council was dissolved on a Friday. I think it was 11th of April. And I called my vice chancellor at UNIZIK and said, I was coming back. He said, what? Won't you go and rest? I said, if we had been schooled to walk around the clock, my body had been tuned to walk around the clock. If I ever rested at that time, I would break down. And by Monday, 14th of April, I was back at work. So that's the background. And people keep thinking, what am I? I am the first female professor of mass comm in Nigeria and in sub-Saharan Africa, not in the entire Africa. Africa south of the Sahara. I can't begin to recount everything we did in government. If you ask me, I will say it would be as a manager of resources, human resources, financial resources is unequaled, unparalleled. He's really a world-class leader. But I need to know what to talk to you about specifically.
Who is Peter Obi? Let's look at his personality.
I will begin by telling you what many people thought. People were thinking he wasn't dignifying the position of governorship. People thought he wasn't showing off the glamour and the prestige of being a governor because he was so down to earth. He didn't throw his weight around. He was grassroots oriented. People who were much below him in everything could walk up to him and talk with him. He didn't go bragging around. He didn't go intimidating people. He didn't go around with siren and chasing everybody off the road. He was that kind of person, both in behavior, even in dressing. He wasn't glamorous. He was the kind of governor. Humane, down to earth, modest, loving, and up till now, people say that his love for children and young people is legendary. People knew that. That was why he invested so much in education, because he loves children. He loved children then and still loves them now, and young people. Their education was of paramount importance to him. If you know how much he spent on education, you will marvel at the kind of man who could do that. And everything we did, I'll keep saying that, particularly in education and health, so much was achieved because we were in partnership with the church. It was a groundbreaking, I would say, earth-shaking partnership. Even his own commissioners didn't support that. We opposed this in government. The NUC said, you cannot do this. Returning schools to original owners, the church. Like I say all the time, Peter Obi can be very headstrong when he wants to, particularly when he's in the right. He went ahead and returned those schools, and thereafter began to give billions of naira to the church at all levels, secondary school, tertiary education, for them to run the schools, return to them in the secondary and primary education sectors. And honestly, the achievements were mind-boggling, and the people loved him. So he wasn't he was a down-to-earth person. He wasn't flamboyant. He didn't go around showing off. And even modesty also applied to the number of commissioners we had. We have seen governors who had hundreds of political appointees, millions of naira going into overheads for maintaining those many people. But we were relatively few in number as commissioners. I don't remember how many now, or political appointees. And that drastically cut down on the cost of running the state. One more thing that slashed to the barest minimum the cost of governance was a man's lifestyle. One other governors, I've seen governors who had up to 20 vehicles in their convoys. So many very expensive vehicles. It wasn't P2B. We had very few vehicles in the convoy. And even when he traveled, unless you were a commissioner or an appointee whose duties dovetailed with what he was going to do, as I mean, he was going to Abuja. I've seen governors who, when they are traveling, the entourage will be running into, I don't know, very, very many people in the entourage. And if you were going abroad, all those will be flying maybe business class or first class with a lot of extra code going with them. If P2B was traveling, unless you were necessary for the purpose of that travel, he wouldn't accompany him. There was no need. I've also seen governors, when they travel, their entourage, part of the people will go and wait for him at the point of arrival to welcome him and show him off. It wasn't P2B. He will go with his own luggage, travel with it, carry it along, and go over there and come down from the plane and go straight to where he was going. I remember one day when we went to Abuja to meet one of the partners. It was just me and him and maybe Val. Val is the media aide, very efficient young man. And three of us went there. And when we were coming, when they called us, we were ascending the steps. We were almost knocked off the step by the huge entourage of one governor who had gone to see the same partners and was coming down the stairs. And we had to take cover, so to say. He was that kind of man, honestly. And all that kind of lifestyle cut down the cost of governance, so that the money saved from that kind of flamboyance and ostentation, that kind of saving was applied to very important areas of life where we were needed to touch lives and do good.
This is almost becoming a slogan. We know they give shishi. We know they give shishi. And all his supporters are now using that and say, we know they give shishi and we know they collect shishi. Can you speak on this attitude, this character of your former principal?
It depends on who the shishi is being given to. He gave shishi, he gave billions to schools. He gave billions to the health sector. It depends on whom the money is being given to. Even now, I don't know how the last government maintained those issues. He deployed hundreds of millions of naira. Let me give you an example on the education sector. At tertiary education level, before he became governor, the state university was nothing to write home about. It was in very poor shape. First of all, he renamed it from Anambra State Government University to Obi'S University. In one fell swoop, he gave 5 billion naira to begin the turning around of that institution. That was a lot of money. Then thereafter, he gave every university in the state, whether it was government-owned, federal government-owned, state government-owned, church or missionary-owned, 100 million naira to begin some kind of turnaround for themselves. And to encourage Anambra young people to do well in education. Every Anambra young man who graduated with a first-class honors received 1 million naira. It was incredible. At one occasion, there was a check for 160 million for 160 young people. It also extended to people who of Anambra origin who excelled in education-related events or activities, like 2 professors who won international awards and local awards also received the 1 million naira. So giving shishi, it depends on who you are giving the money to. Not to political hangers on, not to godfathers. And if those people were hanging around for some time and they didn't see the money, they all left. That was why he had no godfather. That was why he was able to save all the money for the important things. So not giving shit depends on who the money is being given. For good causes, yes, he gets a lot of money, but not to people who were just being rewarded for not doing anything. So that slogan is right, depending on how you are applying it. I'm sure what that slogan means, that he doesn't give shishi or give money to inconsequential things that money shouldn't be spent on, like godfathers, like political hangers on, like people who are just there trying to cash in on government money. He wasn't that kind of person. So the slogan should be looked at from two different perspectives. It is correct in every ramification. Once you're talking about spending government money on irrelevant matters, just to curry favor or for self-aggrandizement, he wasn't that kind of person. Honestly, it amazes me why people think he would divide Nigeria. Because when you are humane, it's not just towards his people. I don't know his personal friend, but I know he worked well with people who were not from the Igbo race. If you begin with people who were not in government, who came here on assignments, like commissioners of police, like people in the army, like people who were not Igbos, he got on with all of them. He lives in Lagos, or at least he lived in Lagos, and he did well there. During the time we were in government, the people who were in the army, in our Onitsha barracks and the Navy, they were not Igbo people. He got on very well with one of the commissioners of police. I don't remember their names now, but virtually all of them were not Igbo, and they collaborated with him. They worked very well. What were they looking for? For him to appoint all commissioners from Yoruba land and Hausa land? I don't think so. But by his very nature, he's somebody who cares for people. He's somebody who looks out for people who mean well. I think his only criterion, his basic criterion for liking people is that you mean well, you are selfless, you are not greedy, you are not looking out for stealing government money. If you have this quality of being altruistic, not egoistic, you will get on with it. It doesn't matter what tribe you're coming from. Maybe I don't have the details now of those he collaborated with, but he's not an Igbophobist. That is not an Igbo-centric person. He can get on with anybody, particularly those who mean well. I have to emphasize that several times. He's a man who is always looking for avenues to do good. And if he finds kindred spirit in you, that means you have the same attitude to life, the same vision of life with him, irrespective of where you come from. He'll get on with it. That's all I can say here now. Anybody who is saying that he will divide Nigeria doesn't really know P2B. It's a unifying factor. An example is when we came into Anambra State. You know, previous governments, I don't want to do any assessment now, but the government before we came in, the one before we came in, particularly the one, there was so much infight, there was so much bad blood, there was so much division in Anambra State. But P2B came in there and pacified everything, brought back civility in government, brought back good governance. And all those who were on the opposite side all calmed down. Everybody mellowed down. Everybody began to love him when they saw he meant well. The same thing he did in Anambra State to pacify everybody and dismiss those who didn't mean well, he will do for Nigeria. He's going to look out for you if you're a Yoruba man and you are a good man and you love Nigeria and you want to rescue Nigeria and you want a new Nigeria and you're Yoruba, he will work with you because that's what he wants to do. If you're an Hausa man and he looks at you and sees your heart and sees what you're doing and discovers you mean well for this nation, the same way he means well for the country, he will work with you. And he looks to the south, and finds the same kindred spirit there, he will work with you. But I must keep repeating, if you are not the same feather with him in terms of meaning well and loving people, particularly young people, thinking about the future of young people, he will not work with you even if you are his younger brother. So I want to really allay the fears of Nigerians. The man we worked with for 8 years, the man we know as well as we know him, will not create division between ethnic groups. It's not about ethnicity or religion. These are factors that Nigerians have promoted over the years to divide people. Obi will not fall into that kind of trap because it is not in his nature and not in his plan. That's all I can say. So please reassure your people, the man you are talking about doesn't have a divisive characteristic. He's a peacemaker. He's a unifier, and that he's going to find that you are going to go and find that working for him if he assumes office for the whole Nigeria.
From my perspective, I am seeing that most interest in Anambra State, most political interest, people in Anambra State, especially the big wigs, those that always want to maintain the status quo, they are not supporting P2B. I might be wrong, but the governor itself, he's shaky. He's not even showing any atom of, oh, this is a man that has worked for this state, let's stand by him. He has not made any open proclamation of positive support for P2B. How do we get some of these people stand behind Obi? Or how do we get them know that Obi means well for the whole of Nigeria? How do we get these people to know? Because Anambra State is not a small state.
One quality of P2B, like I keep saying, is that capacity to unite people. I remember maybe when we came in at the beginning in 2006, P2B didn't live in Anambra State, so not many people knew him. They didn't quite know how to relate with him. But gradually, all those inhibitions were overcome, and the bishops, the church, the big men, as we call them, everybody rallied around him. Apart from those who didn't mean well, P2B so conquered, in quotes, people's resentment, people's opposition, people's uncomparativeness by his very nature. If you see him greet a traditional ruler here, he will almost fall on the ground. They began to love him because they knew the kind of person he was. That kind of modesty is bound to disarm you, no matter how haughty you are. And I keep saying it. Anambra people, even the big men, began to rally around him and to support him. Those who did not were those who didn't mean well, who were not happy that he wasn't sharing the money. Because governors everywhere, many governors share the money, in millions of it, to people who don't deserve that money. So when you come, you're not sharing, people might not like some people who want the money. I need to emphasize that. So I don't quite agree that there's opposition. For this crusade now, or this revolution to make him president, there may be people who are opposing for various reasons. One, he left PDP. There might be some big men or big politicians who are in PDP who will be resentful. He's rising in popularity. Maybe they are fearing he might outshine their own candidate. It's understandable that they might not support him or like him because they are in their own party. They are card-carrying members of their own parties. That's one reason. But anybody who is neutral, I don't see them fighting him. If you're talking about politicians, there's nothing we can do about that. What we have to do is simply to become obedient and more useful and mobilize. If everybody who is not a card-carrying member of a political party votes for him, understands him, I don't think the political party candidates and their supporters will defeat us. So yes, there are people who will not like him, and the reasons for not liking him could be various. Political reasons or financial reasons, because they're not seeing the money they might want to see. You forget that by this time in electioneering, when presidential elections are so close, money will be swimming, everybody will be swimming in money now. So that kind of group who will have been getting hundreds of millions of naira from prospective candidates will not like him because he will not give. So I want to believe that those who mean well, I've said this several times, who understand what he's trying to do. Who in Nigeria doesn't know what Nigeria is going through now? Who here doesn't know how bad this country is now? Who doesn't know the insecurity? Who doesn't know the hunger, the poverty? Who doesn't know what is going wrong in this country? Anybody who has seen all this, who desires a new Nigeria which is better, no matter whether you're a small man or a young man, an old man or a youth, will love P2B for what he's trying to do. Going forward, I'm very confident that people will eventually flock around him when they understand how bad this country is, when they appreciate what he's trying to do and how he wants to do it. They will come round. I'm confident about that. And I'm also very confident that our governor here will eventually support him because he knows. I think they were even personal friends before they joined politics. He knows him. He understands him. I might even think, I don't know who is the godfather of one, whether it was Soludo who is godfather of P2B's child or P2B who is godfather of Soludo's child. I don't know, but they were close. Politics will not divide them for long.
Even when he did not have a single member of his party in the House of Assembly, he was able to work with that House of Assembly members and deliver everything he did in Anambra State. How was this possible?
You're beginning to see where I'm going now in this direction. I said eventually people who understand him and know how well-meaning he is, and know how much he loves Nigeria and loves Anambra State and loves every part of the country, how much he desires the progress of this nation, how much he's pained by the disaster going on in Nigeria today, bad governance. Once they understand that, they will support him. You are right. When we came in 2006, I think virtually every member of the House of Assembly was PDP. It was the only, so to say, the only party in Anambra State. There was resentment when he came in because he had removed a PDP governor. There was resentment. That was what led to the impeachment. How could somebody say you budgeted hundreds of millions of naira to repair things burnt down by reactionary forces, political thugs, so to say, and somebody repaired it with about 1/10 of what you budgeted? You say he didn't do a due project. That was when the bad blood was there. Eventually, when he came down, and really he didn't start serious work because of all the rivalry until about 2008 or thereabout. But when he began working, when even that same House of Assembly began seeing what he was doing, when they began seeing where the money was going to, even if they were not getting it as dash, all of them eventually came round. And remember, the vision of the state under P2B was to achieve the MDGs. At that time, MDGs were the in thing about delivering democracy dividends and doing well. He adopted it because he saw all the goals of the MDGs were pointing in different sectors. It was a multi-sectoral program. And he cashed in on it and began to work in all the goals, all the sectors touched by the MDGs. Was it not the same House Assembly that was approving our budget? They all came around when they saw how well-meaning. There could have been one or two who were recalcitrant because maybe they were greedy or not, but I think the House eventually worked very well with him and he achieved tremendous results. I'm even now trying to put together a brief, maybe a small publication showing what we did in government to complement what people like you are doing online. So, I think everybody should relax. Yes, you're right. At least you know the history of Anambra State. The House was all in the opposition. The House was antagonistic. The House impeached him. But by the time we left there, there was still a number of people who were not in APGA who were in the House. And all of them were partners in progress. I don't have the figures in memory. Like Peter, he can rattle off statistics and figures. I don't have that capacity. So I don't know what the internally generated revenue was in terms of figures. How much? But I know it wasn't much. It wasn't much at all. And that is why one of the fears we had at the beginning. How was he going to do this? But again, beginning with his frugality, we've said this several times here, he cut off everything that was money draining, that wasn't relevant. So that was a big boost to saving money to do the many things he did. That was number one. Again, his lack of ostentation. I'm sure you will have heard about his security vote. Governors, even up till now, take millions and millions of security votes. Even their wives even took security votes. Peter didn't take much. So what he saved in the hundreds of millions he could have taken as security vote, he applied to the work we were doing. That's again frugality and good governance. Above all, we had partners. People supported him from outside Nigeria. Even within Nigeria, some of the Anambra big men also supported him. In this capacity, in this direction, virtually every development partner, I was the coordinating commissioner for development partnership and donor agencies, and I know the amount of money that came into Anambra State from these partners. And don't begin to think that partners were everywhere. They were not everywhere. They were in states where the governors meant well. The states where they were confident that the governors would use the money they brought to do the work they brought the money for. States where there was accountability. States where governors were not embezzling money. One of the things that was done when we were in government was the Governors Forum, in partnership with DSID, began what they called the peer review mechanism, where the governors peer reviewed themselves. And we were the first, Anambra was the governor, we was the first to volunteer willingly to be peer reviewed. That means DSID partners came in to pour over every document and see what he was doing. And at the end of that, he came out in flying colors. He did all that, even in UNICEF. UNICEF so supported us, it was amazing. I was UNICEF authorizing officer for Anambra State. That means I was, apart from Governor Obi, he sent the money to our ministry at the beginning of the year, and I was authorizing what it was. And UNICEF was breathing down our necks, looking at everything we did. And they were happy. Other partners were there. DFID, UNICEF, World Bank, we were in rollback malaria, we were in Fadama 3. The European Union, in the water sector and sanitation sector, they were powerful there. And remember in Abuja Lodge, Governor's Lodge in Abuja, was there guzzling money with a lot of staff employed there, drivers, cleaners, cooks, everybody, doing nothing until P2B gave it out free of charge to UNDP, and their support was marvelous. So partnership, the most basic partnership was the MDGs partnership. As soon as he chose MDGs as his vision, he began to really fund it well. He began to really implement MDGs programs using our needs. Eventually, he won the best governor in MDGs implementation in Nigeria. Even when he had left government, he still was invited to New York to come and talk about his experience. So the MDGs partnership was there, funding MDGs program in partnership with Anambra State. And he was meticulous and prompt in paying Anambra State counterpart funding. So once the partners put in their money, he was always ready and prompt in putting on the counterpart contribution. And the partners were watching. They were observing. We had a budget forum organized by my ministry every year before we prepared the budget in my ministry also. We invited everybody to come and make an input, so we didn't waste the money. So he was frugal. He was money conscious without being miserly. I don't believe this miserly thing, because he was spending billions. So all these things made him save every kobo, made him use less every naira purposefully, made him retain his partners who supported him with a lot of money. That was how he achieved all those things. And in addition to everything we did here, he didn't borrow. And by the time he left, he didn't raise any bonds, and he didn't owe anybody. I think it is sometimes I wonder, I think it's magic. But it wasn't magic. He was just a man who meant well, who had capacity, who loved his people, working for them selflessly, using every kobo of government money to work for the people. I think that's how he achieved it. There's no other way to it. It wasn't magic. In spite of the small IGR, internal revenue, coming in, he still accomplished much more than anybody else who could have been in that kind of mega money coming in. It was careful planning. And like I said, nothing he did that wasn't planned. And because he kept saying, if you don't plan well, you're planning to fail. If you don't know the road, any route can lead you anywhere. So he sat down, weighed his options, knew what he wanted to do, found the money from his partners and from the IGR we had, and used every kobo frugally and meticulously. This was how he achieved all those results.
Yeah, my name is Silas Okunna Testified. I'm a doctoral student in Spain. Coincidentally, I earned my first degree in Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Department of Mass Communication. Yeah, I graduated 2013 when you were coming back.
Yeah, we were in government, yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
So mine is a comment as a question, but I really thank you for what you've impacted in us and for how you've made us. I actually got a fully funded scholarship here in Europe. And I've been able, at least I've witnessed the person of Mr. Obi in several occasions. One was when he came to UNIZIC at the Faculty of Social Science lecture series, which was fully supported by Senator Ndiobi.
Yeah, Zik lecture.
Zik lecture series. We were able to see Peter Obi. I was able to see Peter Obi from a very personal level, because I was privileged to be the president of the association then, and we work with other presidents in the faculty. And the way he talked to us, I was like, is this a governor or a commoner like me? And on several occasions, I've met him with just only 2 cars at Thames site. He sits on the front.
Yeah, that's where he sits.
He sits in the front with the driver. And I was like, is this a governor? So I am talking from a personal perspective. This is a man that sat some departmental president and faculty president to talk to. And it was like, if every governor could be like this. And I can just imagine, because I really appreciate you, man, because I know Peter Obi chose you because of the kind of person you are. I must commend you the way you remodel our department, the structure you put there for the FM, fully sponsored by you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
But one thing I want to let us know here is that we have to be obedient and useful. Peter Obi is the unifier. That is just the truth.
That's a word.
I have talked to him. And when people say he's going to divide, he's not going to divide. We know they give shishi just like the professor has contextualized. He no go give you shishi